I'm Rebecca Martinez, 32 years old, and I'm standing in the parking lot of the Riverside Country Club, watching through the window as my parents laugh with 200 guests at their 20th anniversary vow renewal. They don't know I'm here. They haven't seen me in 14 years, not since my high school graduation day, when they told me I had 1 week to leave their house. My younger sister Madison stood beside them, smiling. Tonight, I'm not the broke 18-year-old they abandoned. Tonight, I have something they desperately need. Could I really destroy their perfect celebration? Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know I'm not alone in this. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, if you've ever been the forgotten child, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And please, hit that like button and subscribe because this story gets wild. Trust me, you'll want to see how karma works when it's been waiting 14 years. What I'm about to share with you changed everything, not just for me, but for everyone who thought they could erase someone and face no consequences. Let's get into it. Growing up in Austin, Texas, I thought every family was like mine. I was the eldest daughter of Gerald and Patricia Martinez. My father was a successful real estate developer, always busy with deals and developments. My mother was a former beauty queen who never quite let go of her crown days. She was obsessed with image, with what people thought, with maintaining the appearance of perfection. When I was 12, everything changed. My sister Madison was born. From the moment Madison entered our lives, I became invisible. It wasn't gradual. It was immediate and obvious. Madison got ballet lessons, piano lessons, horseback riding. I was expected to babysit her, do household chores, maintain straight A's without any help or encouragement. My parents threw elaborate parties for Madison's birthdays at expensive venues with bouncy castles and pony rides. My birthdays were small family dinners at home, often forgotten entirely. I remember my 13th birthday like it was yesterday. I woke up excited, came downstairs expecting at least a card or a small cake. Nothing. My parents were rushing around getting Madison ready for a dance recital. When I asked about my birthday, my mother looked confused for a moment, then said we'd celebrate later. We never did. Madison's recital took up the whole day, and by the time we got home, everyone was too tired. That was the moment I understood. I didn't matter the way Madison did. High school made the disparity even clearer. I worked part-time at a local diner called Rosie's to save money for college. I'd come home exhausted at 10 p.m., do my homework until midnight, wake up at 6 a.m. to start again. My parents refused to discuss a college fund for me. They said I needed to earn my way, that independence would build character. Meanwhile, Madison, still in elementary school, already had a college fund my parents bragged about to neighbors. They'd tell anyone who'd listen about how they were saving for Madison's future at Juilliard, how she was going to be a famous dancer. I made National Honor Society my junior year. It was a big deal. There was a ceremony where parents were invited to watch their children be inducted. I gave my parents the invitation 3 weeks in advance. The night of the ceremony, I put on my best dress and waited by the door. My father came downstairs in sweatpants. I asked if he was getting ready. He looked at me blankly and said he wasn't going. Madison had a soccer practice. Not even a game. A practice. My mother agreed they needed to be there for her. I went to the ceremony alone, watched every other student hug their parents afterward while I stood by myself trying not to cry. When I won the Academic Excellence Award my senior year, the school called home to congratulate my parents. I was there when my mother answered. She said thank you, hung up, and didn't mention it to me at all. I only knew they'd called because I'd heard her side of the conversation. That award came with a small scholarship, $500. It wasn't much, but I was proud. I left the certificate on the kitchen table, hoping they'd say something. 3 days later, I found it in the recycling bin. The breaking point started at Thanksgiving dinner when I was 17. My Uncle Thomas, my father's brother, asked me about college plans. I said I'd applied to several schools and was hoping for scholarships. He turned to my father and asked if they were helping me financially. The silence at that table was deafening. Finally, my father, not even looking at me, said coldly that I would figure it out myself. He said they were investing in Madison's future because she actually had potential. My mother added, like she was being helpful, that I'd always been so independent and didn't need them the way Madison did. Uncle Thomas looked uncomfortable. My aunt looked horrified. Madison, 12 years old at the time, smirked into her mashed potatoes. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and cried so hard I threw up. That was when I knew for certain. I wasn't their daughter. Not really. I was an obligation they were counting down the days until they could be free of. Senior year, I applied to 12 universities completely on my own. I filled out every financial aid form, wrote every essay, requested every transcript without any help. I got accepted to University of Texas at Austin with a partial scholarship. It was the proudest moment of my life. But I still needed $15,000 for first-year expenses, including housing, books, meal plan, and fees. I saved every penny from the diner, but I was only at $8,000. One evening in April, 6 weeks before graduation, I gathered my courage. My father was at the kitchen table helping Madison with an elementary school art project. My mother was making dinner. I stood there, financial aid papers in hand, and asked if they could help me with part of the remaining costs. Just part. Anything. My father barely looked up from Madison's poster board. He said they'd told me before that I was 18 soon, an adult, and adults handle their own finances. My mother, stirring pasta, added that they were saving for Madison's future. She said Madison wanted to go to Juilliard for dance, and that was expensive. They needed to prioritize. I tried again. I told them I'd worked so hard, done everything right, maintained a 4.2 gigapascals while working 20 hours a week. I begged them to please, just help me with part of it. My father finally looked at me. His eyes were cold. He said I was selfish, that I'd always been selfish, that everything was always about me. He asked if I couldn't see they had another daughter to think about. Madison looked up from her art project and smirked at me. That look on her 13-year-old face, that satisfaction at watching me be rejected, broke something in me. I went upstairs to my room and cried myself to sleep. But in the morning, I woke up with a new determination. I would get to college without them. I would succeed without them, and I would never, ever forgive them. June 15th, 2011. My high school graduation day. I woke up at 6 a.m., too excited and nervous to sleep, despite everything. Despite knowing they didn't value me the way they valued Madison, some small part of me hoped that today, on this important milestone, they would show up. They would be proud. They would see me. I put on the white dress I'd bought with my diner money, did my makeup carefully, curled my hair. I came downstairs at 8 a.m. The ceremony started at 11. I found my parents and Madison in the dining room eating breakfast. They were all dressed formally. My heart lifted. They were getting ready. They were coming. I smiled and said, "Good morning." I said I was glad they were already getting ready, that it meant a lot to me that they'd be there. My mother didn't look up from her coffee. My father kept reading the newspaper. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my mother spoke. She said they weren't going to my graduation. I stood frozen. The words didn't make sense at first. I asked what she meant, thinking I'd misheard. My father put down his newspaper and looked at me with irritation. He said Madison had a dance competition today, the regional finals, much more important than my graduation. I reminded them they'd known about my graduation for months. Madison had competitions all the time. Madison, buttering her toast with a smug expression, said her competition was at 1 p.m. If they went to my boring ceremony, they'd miss it. My mother, finally meeting my eyes, told me not to be so dramatic. She said it was just high school graduation. Everyone graduates high school. It wasn't special. I felt my voice shaking as I told them this was the most important day of my life so far. I was the first person in our extended family to graduate with honors. I'd worked so hard. My father stood up, walked to his study, and came back with an envelope. He threw it on the table in front of me. I picked it up with trembling hands and pulled out the papers inside. It was an eviction notice. A formal, legal eviction notice addressed to me. I looked up at him, not understanding. He said I had 1 week to move out. I was 18 now, legally an adult, time to stand on my own 2 feet. I asked if he was serious, if he was really kicking me out on my graduation day. My mother, still calmly sipping her coffee, said they'd done their duty. They'd raised me to adulthood. Now I needed to move forward with my life and let them focus on Madison's needs. I asked where I was supposed to go. I didn't start college until August. I didn't have anywhere to live. My father, completely emotionless, said that wasn't their problem anymore. I had 7 days. After that, they were changing the locks. Madison laughed. She actually laughed at my devastation. I looked at my little sister, this child I'd babysat and helped with homework and tried to be kind to despite her favoritism, and asked if she thought this was funny. She said kind of yeah, that I'd always been so annoying, acting like I was so much better than everyone because I got good grades. She said now I was finally leaving and she was glad. My mother told Madison not to be rude, but she was smiling when she said it. There was no real reprimand, no defense of me, nothing. I went to graduation alone. I sat with my classmates in alphabetical order, Martinez somewhere in the middle. All around me, students were waving to their families in the audience, taking selfies, excited and happy. When they called my name, Rebecca Maria Martinez, I walked across the stage. My section of the auditorium was silent. No cheers, no applause from my row, just the polite clapping of strangers. I accepted my diploma and looked out at the sea of faces. I found my guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, in the audience. She was in the parents section, wearing a nice dress. When she saw me looking, she stood up and cheered loudly. She was the only person there for me. I had to bite my lip to keep from crying on stage. After the ceremony, while everyone else took family photos and went to celebration lunches, I found Mrs. Henderson. She hugged me tight and asked where my parents were. I broke down and told her everything. The eviction notice, the abandonment, the fact that I had nowhere to go. Mrs. Henderson, this angel of a woman, didn't hesitate. She said I could stay with her and her husband for the summer. They had a guest room. It was mine for as long as I needed it. I cried with relief and gratitude. She drove me home. My parents weren't there. They'd already left for Madison's competition. I packed everything I owned into 3 suitcases and 2 boxes. My whole life fit into 5 containers. I took one last look at my childhood bedroom, the room I'd lived in for 18 years. Then I left my house key on the kitchen counter and walked out. I never looked back at that house. Mrs. Henderson and her husband Harold treated me with more kindness in 10 weeks than my parents had shown me in years. They gave me space when I needed it, support when I asked, and unconditional compassion always. I worked double shifts at the diner all summer, saved every single penny. Mrs. Henderson helped me apply for additional financial aid and emergency grants from the university. We found every possible source of funding. By early August, I had enough money for my first semester. Barely, but enough. Mrs. Henderson drove me to the UT Austin campus and helped me move into my tiny dorm room. She hugged me goodbye and told me I was going to do amazing things. She said she knew it in her bones. I cried and thanked her for saving my life. She smiled and said I'd saved myself. She just gave me a safe place to land. All summer, I didn't hear from my parents once. Not a call, not a text, not an email, nothing. It was like I had ceased to exist the moment I turned 18. Mrs. Henderson tried calling them once to tell them I was safe, thinking they might be worried. My father answered and said thank you for letting him know, then hung up. That was it. No request to speak to me. No message to pass along. Just thank you and goodbye. Mrs. Henderson cried when she told me about that call. She said she didn't understand how parents could be so cold. I told her I'd stopped trying to understand years ago. Freshman year of college was the hardest year of my life. I worked 3 part-time jobs while taking a full course load. I was a waitress at a campus restaurant called the Longhorn Cafe, a library assistant during the week, and I worked retail on weekends at a clothing store. Between classes and work, I slept maybe 4 to 5 hours a night. I lived on ramen noodles, dollar menu items from fast food places, and whatever meals I could afford with my dining plan. My roommate Jessica came from a wealthy family in Dallas. She didn't work, didn't worry about money, spent her weekends partying and her weekdays complaining about easy classes. One day, she asked me why I worked so much. Why I didn't just ask my parents for money like normal college students. I told her I didn't have parents. She looked confused and asked what happened to them. I said they were alive, I just didn't have them. She never asked again. I maintained a 3.8 gigapascals despite the exhaustion. Every A felt like revenge. Every successful exam was proof they were wrong about me. I made it through first year barely, running on coffee and spite. Sophomore year, I got a better-paying job as a tutor for wealthy high school students preparing for SATs and ACTs. I charged $80 an hour and parents paid it gladly because I got results. I still worked multiple jobs, but I could finally sleep more than 5 hours some nights. Junior year, I majored in finance with a minor in business administration. I knew I wanted to work with money, to understand it, to master it. Money was freedom. Money was security. Money was the opposite of everything I'd felt at 18, with nowhere to go. I interned at a prestigious financial advisory firm downtown called Donovan Financial Group. The senior partner, Mr. Richard Donovan, noticed my work ethic immediately. He was a self-made man himself, had worked his way up from nothing. He saw something familiar in me. One day, he called me into his office and asked me about my background. I told him the truth, all of it, the abandonment, the struggle, the determination to succeed. He listened without interrupting, then said he wanted to offer me a full-time position after graduation, starting salary $75,000. I almost fell out of my chair. That was more money than I'd ever imagined making. He smiled and said I'd earned it with my work, and I'd continue earning it with my results. Senior year, I took the maximum allowed course load and finished a semester early in December 2014. I graduated with honors, a degree in finance, and a job waiting for me. I walked across that graduation stage again, 4.5 years after high school. Mrs. Henderson was there in the audience again, cheering for me again. This time, she wasn't alone. Her husband, Harold, was there. My friend from work, Tasha, was there. My study group friends were there. I had people who chose to be there for me. It felt better than family ever had. I started at Donovan Financial Group in January 2015. That first paycheck, I sat in my tiny apartment and cried. I'd made it. Against everything, against everyone who doubted me, I'd made it. But there was still a wound inside me that hadn't healed. A week after I started my job, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up my parents on Facebook for the first time in years. Their page was full of photos. Photos of Madison's high school graduation coming up in spring 2015. Photos of elaborate celebration plans. Comments from relatives congratulating Gerald and Patricia on their amazing daughter, their pride and joy. There was an album titled Our Pride and Joy Madison Graduates. I clicked through it. Party planning photos, decoration photos, invitation designs. everything they'd never done for me. I scrolled further back through their timeline. Years of photos. Madison's dance performances. Madison's college acceptance to University of North Texas. Madison's birthdays, Christmases, family vacations. And in every single photo, every single album, every single post, it was just the three of them. Gerald, Patricia, and Madison. I wasn't just absent, I was erased. It was like I had never existed. Not one mention of another daughter. Not one acknowledgement that they had 2 children. Completa error. I closed my laptop and sat in silence. I felt something shift inside me. Not just hurt anymore. Anger. Cold, clear, focused anger. They hadn't just abandoned me. They'd rewritten history. They'd told themselves and everyone else a story where I simply didn't exist. That was somehow worse than the abandonment itself. I made a decision that night. I would never reach out to them, never beg for their acknowledgement, but if they ever came to me needing something, they would learn what it felt like to be discarded. From 2015 to 2018, I became a rising star at Donovan Financial. I specialized in estate planning, wealth management, and investment strategies for high net worth clients. I was good at it, really good. I understood money in a way people who'd always had it never could. I understood its power, its importance, its ability to create security or destroy it. By age 25 in 2018, I was promoted to senior financial advisor. My salary jumped to $150,000 plus performance bonuses. I managed portfolios worth millions. Clients trusted me because I was thorough, strategic, and I genuinely cared about protecting their assets. By age 27 in 2020, Mr. Donovan made me partner. I was the youngest partner in the firm's 40-year history. My salary reached $300,000 annually. I managed over $500 million in client assets. I bought a beautiful condo in downtown Austin with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I drove a Tesla Model S. I wore designer clothes and expensive jewelry. I lived the life my parents had told me I'd never achieve. But I stayed humble. I remembered the girl who ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. I remembered sleeping on a guidance counselor's couch. I never forgot where I came from, even as I built something they'd said was impossible. In 2019, I met Daniel Chen at a networking event for young professionals. He was a software engineer at a tech startup, brilliant and kind in equal measure. We started dating in March of that year. He came from a loving, supportive family. His parents were immigrants from Taiwan who'd worked hard to give their kids every opportunity. They were warm and welcoming, and everything my family had never been. The first time Daniel asked about my family, I told him I wasn't in contact with them. He couldn't understand it at first. He kept saying they must miss me, asking if we could work it out, suggesting maybe it was a misunderstanding. Finally, I sat him down and told him everything. The abandonment, the favoritism, the eviction notice on graduation day, the erasure. He was horrified. He said that wasn't family, that was abuse. I'd never thought of it that way before, but he was right. Daniel's parents invited me to Thanksgiving in 2019. I was terrified. I didn't know how to be part of a family dinner, but they welcomed me like I'd always been there. His mother hugged me and said any friend of Daniel's was family to them. During dinner, his father asked about my work and actually listened to my answer. His mother asked about my interests. His younger sister joked with me like we'd known each other for years. I excused myself at one point and cried in the bathroom. This was what family was supposed to be, but part of me still carried the wound. I started therapy in 2020 with Dr. Yolanda Ruiz. She specialized in family trauma and abandonment issues. Over months of sessions, she helped me understand that what my parents did wasn't my fault, that I hadn't been unlovable, They'd been incapable of loving me the way I deserved. She told me I didn't owe them forgiveness just because they were blood. She said I owed myself peace. I worked hard in therapy. I processed the grief of never having the parents I needed. I worked through the anger at the injustice of it all. I built skills for setting boundaries and protecting my peace, but I still occasionally checked their Facebook. Not out of longing anymore. More like morbid curiosity, watching their lives from a distance, like a documentary about strangers. I watched Madison go to UNT for dance. I saw posts celebrating her performances, her achievements. 2016. My mother posted about Madison getting the lead role in the spring recital. 2017. Madison made Dean's List, and my parents couldn't stop bragging. 2018. Madison graduated college, and they threw a huge party. The photos showed at least 200 people celebrating her. In 2019, Madison got married to her college boyfriend, Tyler Bennett. The wedding was massive. 300 guests at an expensive venue. My father walked her down the aisle, both of them crying. My mother's post said today, I gave away my baby girl. Being a mother has been my greatest joy. I read that line and laughed bitterly. Being a mother had been her greatest joy, but only to one daughter. I didn't even rate a mention as our other daughter. Just complete erasure. 2020 through 2022. Madison's social media was full of married life posts. Happy couple photos, anniversary celebrations, vacation pictures. Then slowly, the posts changed. Fewer couple photos, more solo shots, vague posts about difficult times and personal growth. By 2023, it was clear her marriage was falling apart. No more happy couple content. Separate photos. Obviously, something was very wrong. I noticed, but I didn't care much. That was Madison's problem to deal with. Just like my problems had been mine to deal with alone. I had my own life now, a life I'd built from nothing. Daniel proposed to me in May 2024. We got married in September in a small, beautiful ceremony with his family and our close friends. Mrs. Henderson was there, crying happy tears. It was perfect. Everything I'd never had growing up, I was building for myself now. If you're still watching, I need you to know something. This story is about to take a turn that changed everything. What happened next tested everything I thought I knew about revenge, justice, and family. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose between helping family who hurt you and protecting yourself? Because that choice was coming for me, and I had no idea how to make it. Stay with me, because the real drama is just beginning. March 25th, 2025. I was in my office reviewing a client portfolio when my phone rang. Unknown Austin number. I usually let unknown numbers go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Maybe intuition. Maybe fate. Hello, I said. There was a pause, then a female voice I vaguely recognized. Rebecca? Rebecca Martinez? Yes, I answered. Who is this? The voice said it's your Aunt Caroline, your father's sister. I went completely still. I hadn't spoken to any family member in 14 years. Hadn't even thought about Aunt Caroline in probably a decade. How did you get my number? I asked. She said she was a paralegal. She had ways of finding people. Then she said she needed to talk to me about my parents. I felt my defenses go up immediately. I told her I didn't have parents. She said, please, just listen. Your father is in serious trouble, financial trouble. Despite every instinct telling me to hang up, curiosity won. What kind of trouble? I asked. Aunt Caroline explained that my father had made terrible investment decisions. In 2023, he'd invested heavily in a commercial real estate development deal that fell through. He'd borrowed against his company, his house, everything to fund it. When the deal collapsed, he lost millions. He'd tried to recover the losses by taking on more debt and making riskier investments. That only made things worse. Now, in March 2025, he was facing bankruptcy. They were going to lose their house, their savings, everything. The company was being liquidated. He owed 17 creditors over $3 million total. Aunt Caroline said it was bad. Really bad, and getting worse every day. I listened to all of this and felt absolutely nothing. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She said, "Because you're a financial advisor, one of the best in Texas from what I hear. You could help them." I actually laughed out loud. "Help them? Are you serious?" She said she knew they'd treated me terribly. She'd tried to talk to Gerald about it back then, but he wouldn't listen. But Rebecca? They're family. I stopped her right there. They stopped being my family 14 years ago. They made that choice on my graduation day when they kicked me out. They made that choice every day since when they erased me from their lives. This isn't my problem. Aunt Caroline was quiet for a moment, then said, "Please, just think about it. Your mother is devastated. Your father's pride is destroyed. And Madison," her voice trailed off. "What about Madison?" I asked. Aunt Caroline said her marriage fell apart. Divorced last December. She has a 3-year-old daughter, Emma. She's back living with your parents with no job, no skills, no money. They're all in trouble together. I felt a small pang at the mention of a child, my niece I'd never met, but I pushed it away. "I appreciate the call," I said, "but this isn't my problem." I hung up. 2 weeks later, Aunt Caroline called again. "Before you hang up," she said quickly, "just listen. Your parents are having a 20th anniversary vow renewal. April 12th, they're pretending everything is fine, inviting everyone they know. 200 people. It's their last attempt to save face before the bankruptcy becomes public knowledge." "Again, not my problem," I said. "Rebecca," she continued, "I'm sending you an invitation. You don't have to go. But I think you should. I think they need to see what they lost, what they threw away. The daughter who became everything they said she couldn't be. Why would I give them that satisfaction?" I asked. She said, "It's not for them. It's for you. For closure. Show them who you became despite them, not because of them." Then she hung up before I could respond. 3 days later, an expensive invitation arrived in my mail. Gold-embossed lettering on heavy cream cardstock. "Gerald and Patricia Martinez request the honor of your presence at the renewal of their wedding vows. 20 years of love, laughter, and family. Riverside Country Club, April 12th, 2025, 7 p.m. Black tie." I stared at that invitation for a long time. 20 years of love, laughter, and family. The irony was almost funny. What family? The one they'd erased me from? Daniel came home from work and found me sitting at the kitchen table holding it. "What's that?" he asked. I told him everything. The phone call from Aunt Caroline. The financial trouble. The anniversary party invitation. "Are you going to go?" he asked carefully. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to. Part of me wants to burn this invitation and forget they exist." "What would going accomplish?" he asked. I thought about that question. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe I needed them to see me, to acknowledge that I existed and succeeded, to face what they'd thrown away. Over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I did some digging through my professional network. It wasn't hard to find information. Gerald Martinez's financial troubles were becoming semi-public knowledge in Austin business circles. His real estate company was indeed being liquidated. Creditors were circling. The foreclosure on his house was in process. He had maybe 6 months before losing everything. I dug deeper. Madison's ex-husband Tyler had left her for another woman he'd been having an affair with. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. Madison had no college degree completed, had dropped out after 2 years to focus on dance. No professional dance career had materialized. She had no job history, no marketable skills, no money of her own. She was completely dependent on her failing parents. The golden child had fallen very hard. Then I found something that made my blood boil. Through mutual acquaintances and social media deep dives, I discovered my parents had been telling people for years that I had moved away and lost touch. Not that they'd abandoned me, not that they'd kicked me out. They'd rewritten the entire narrative. They were the victims in their version. The hurt parents whose ungrateful daughter had left and cut them off. My mother had apparently told her book club friends that they'd tried so hard with me, but I was always so distant and difficult. She said I'd left right after graduation and refused their attempts to stay in contact. She said it broke their hearts. Multiple people had left sympathetic comments on old Facebook posts about how sad it must be to have a child who won't speak to you. They'd made themselves the martyrs. Not only had they erased me, they'd turned my abandonment into their tragedy. I felt rage like I'd never felt before. White-hot, clarifying rage. They'd taken everything from me, my family, my support, my place in my own history, and then they'd made themselves the victims of my absence. I made a decision. I would go to that anniversary party, not to reconcile, not to forgive, not even really for closure. I would go to make them face the truth in front of everyone, to show them exactly who I'd become without them, to make them acknowledge what they'd done, and to make them beg for my help before I said no. They wanted to pretend I didn't exist? I was about to become impossible to ignore. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing like I was going to war, because I was. This wasn't just about showing up. This was about truth, evidence, and justice. I started gathering documents, my high school transcripts showing my 4.2 gigapascals, my college acceptance letters, the financial aid applications I'd filled out alone, every line in my handwriting because I had no parents to help, screenshots of every scholarship and grant application. I found old photos on my laptop. The selfie I'd taken on graduation day in my cap and gown, alone in my bedroom because no one else was there to take my picture. The photo Mrs. Henderson had taken of me moving into my college dorm. Everything I owned in those few boxes. My first apartment, barely furnished. Documentation of my own history. The history they'd tried to erase. I went through years of my parents' Facebook archives and took screenshots. Every post about Madison. Every celebration. Every achievement, every milestone. Then I created a document showing what they'd posted about me in those same years. The document was blank, not one single post, not one mention, not even on my birthday or graduation. Complete erasure across 14 years. I printed out my professional achievements, my promotion to partner at 27, articles about me in financial publications, client testimonials, awards I'd won, my current financial statement showing a net worth of over $2 million at age 32, everything they'd said I'd never accomplish. I created a timeline, a detailed, sourced, proven timeline of everything, what they did, what I overcame, what I became. Then I contacted Mrs. Henderson. She was retired now, living in San Antonio with Harold. When I called, she answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm and happy. "Rebecca, I've been following your career online. I'm so proud of you." We talked for a few minutes, catching up. Then I asked for a favor. I needed her to write a letter about what happened my senior year, the condition I was in, how my parents treated me, what she witnessed. Mrs. Henderson was quiet for a moment. "Sweetie, what's this for?" I explained about the anniversary party, about my plan to confront them with the truth in front of everyone. She asked if I was sure this was what I needed to do, if it would help me heal or just reopen wounds. I told her I needed them to stop lying about me. I needed everyone to know the truth. She said, "If that's what you need, I'll write you the most detailed letter I've ever written." The letter arrived 3 days later. 5 pages, single-spaced, typed and signed. Mrs. Henderson documented everything. How I'd come to school my senior year with dark circles under my eyes, losing weight, obviously not sleeping or eating properly. How she'd found me crying in the bathroom multiple times. How she'd called my parents in for a conference about college planning, and they'd dismissed all her concerns. Said I was being dramatic and attention-seeking. She wrote about my graduation day, about how I'd attended alone while every other student had family there, about taking me in that summer because I'd literally been made homeless by my own parents, about watching me work myself to exhaustion, taking every shift I could get, surviving on next to nothing, about the determination and strength I'd shown, about how I was one of the strongest people she'd ever known. The letter was devastating and powerful. Perfect evidence. I bought a new dress for the party. Black, designer, elegant. It cost $3,000. I'd never spent that much on a single item of clothing before, but I wanted to look like success incarnate. I had my hair professionally styled in loose waves. Makeup professionally done. Subtle but flawless. I wore the diamond earrings Daniel had given me for our first anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror the night of April 12th and barely recognized myself. I looked powerful, confident, untouchable. Daniel offered to come with me for support. I kissed him and said no, I needed to do this alone. He looked worried. "Are you sure this is healthy?" he asked. "This sounds like it might hurt you more than them." "Maybe," I admitted. "But I need to stop being their secret shame. I need to exist again, to force them to see me." He kissed my forehead and said, "Call me if you need me. I'll be 10 minutes away." At 6:45 p.m., I drove to Riverside Country Club. It was an expensive venue overlooking the Colorado River. All glass walls and elegant architecture. There was valet parking, a string quartet playing in the lobby. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the party already in full swing. 200 guests in formal wear, champagne flowing, my parents at the center of it all, laughing and accepting congratulations. Madison beside them holding a toddler who must be Emma. The perfect family. -1. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might be having a panic attack. This was it. The moment. Could I really do this? Walk in there and shatter their carefully constructed illusion? Part of me wanted to drive away, to let them have their party, to continue my life without ever confronting them. But then I thought about 18-year-old Rebecca, the girl sitting alone at graduation while everyone else celebrated with their families. The girl sleeping on a couch because her parents threw her out. The girl eating ramen for 4 years straight because she had nothing. The girl working 3 jobs while other students partied. That girl deserved justice. That girl deserved to have her story told. That girl deserved to be seen. I checked my makeup one more time in the mirror, took a deep breath, got out of the car. My heels clicked on the pavement as I walked toward the entrance. The doorman opened the door with a smile. "Good evening, ma'am. Name, please?" "Rebecca Martinez," I said. He checked his list, looked confused. "I don't see a Rebecca Martinez on the guest list." I smiled. "I'm the daughter." He looked even more confused, but stepped aside to let me in. I walked into the elegant ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, champagne towers, live music. Nobody noticed me at first. Then I saw Aunt Caroline near the bar. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. She touched the arm of the man next to her, my uncle, and pointed. He turned and stared. Then a cousin saw me. Then another family member. Like dominoes, conversations started stopping, people turning, staring. At the front of the room, my father stood at a microphone giving a speech. He was thanking everyone for celebrating 20 years with my beautiful wife and our wonderful family. He hadn't seen me yet, but Madison had. She was standing to the side holding Emma. Her face went completely white. She reached out and tugged frantically on our mother's sleeve, pointing at me. My mother turned, saw me, dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing through the increasingly quiet room. The crystal shards scattered everywhere, champagne spreading in a pool at her feet. My father stopped speaking mid-sentence, turned to see what had caused the disruption, followed everyone's staring eyes to the entrance. He saw me, his eldest daughter, the one he'd erased from his life and his history, standing in the doorway in a $3,000 dress, looking like everything he'd said I'd never be. The entire ballroom went silent, 200 people staring. The string quartet stopped playing. Even the bartenders stopped pouring drinks. You could have heard a pin drop. My father's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, recognition, fear, anger. I smiled, took a step forward into the room. My heels clicked loudly on the marble floor in the absolute silence. Another step, another. The crowd parted in front of me like the Red Sea, everyone moving aside, no one saying a word. I walked slowly, deliberately, confidently down the middle of the ballroom toward the front where my family stood frozen. Madison's little daughter Emma tugged on her mother's dress. "Mommy," she said in a loud child voice, "who's that pretty lady?" Madison, her voice shaking, said, "Nobody, baby. Nobody important." Her words carried in the silence. Everyone heard it. I heard it. That was the spark that lit the fire inside me. After 14 years, I was still nobody to them, still unimportant, still erasable. That ended tonight. I walked right up to the front of the room, stood 20 feet from my parents, close enough to see every detail of their faces. My father's fake tan and expensive suit, my mother's Botox and designer gown, Madison's fear and the little girl in her arms who looked just like baby pictures I'd seen of myself. My family, the people who shared my DNA and nothing else. My father found his voice first. Rebecca. His voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. "This is quite a surprise." "Is it?" I asked. "Didn't you invite your whole family?" My mother forced a bright smile, the kind she'd perfected in her beauty queen days. "Of course you're welcome here, dear. We're so glad you could make it." Her voice was sickly sweet, so fake it was nauseating. I looked past them at the 200 guests, all still staring at this unexpected drama. "How many of you know I exist?" I asked loudly. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. "How many of you have ever heard Gerald and Patricia Martinez talk about their eldest daughter?" More murmurs. People looking at each other, whispering, clearly confused. Aunt Caroline stepped forward from the crowd. "I know you exist, honey." A few older relatives nodded. My grandmother's sister, a couple of distant cousins who remembered me from childhood. But the vast majority of people, my parents' friends, their social circle, their business associates, looked genuinely shocked. One woman I recognized as my mother's best friend spoke up. "Wait, Patricia? You have another daughter? I've known you for 15 years. You never mentioned a second daughter." I turned to the woman who'd just spoken, my mother's best friend whose name I thought was Linda. "That's because they pretend I don't exist. Let me introduce myself properly since they never have. I'm Rebecca Martinez. I'm 32 years old. I graduated high school third in my class 14 years ago. These are my parents. Or they were." I gestured at Gerald and Patricia. My father stepped forward, his face reddening. "Rebecca, this isn't the time or place for whatever this is." "Really?" I asked. "When is the time, Dad? When would be appropriate for you to acknowledge that I exist?" My mother's eyes were filling with tears, but I didn't believe them for a second. "Sweetheart," she said in that fake sweet voice, "you're being dramatic. We've just lost touch over the years. That happens in families. People grow apart, lost touch. Is that what you call it? I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app where I'd prepared everything I wanted to say. June 15th, 2011. My high school graduation day. You told me I had 1 week to move out. I was 18 years old. You gave me this envelope. I pulled the eviction notice from my purse, held it up for everyone to see. It was an eviction notice. For your own daughter. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People moving closer to see better, to hear better. I continued. You didn't attend my graduation because Madison had a dance competition. You told me I needed to accomplish something worth celebrating. Then you threw me out. You made me homeless at 18. I had nowhere to go, no money, no support, nothing. I slept on my guidance counselor's couch for the entire summer because I had no family. Madison suddenly spoke up, her voice shrill. That's not what happened. You're lying. You're making this up to ruin their special day. Am I? I asked, turning to her. Does anyone here want to read the 5-page letter from my high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Ellen Henderson? The one who took me in that summer? The one who documented every conversation she had with you about how you were treating me? I pulled Mrs. Henderson's letter from my purse, held it up. It's all here, 5 pages. Dates, times, specific incidents. Her professional observations as a school counselor about the neglect and emotional abuse. Would you like me to read it aloud? My father's face was now dark red, a vein pulsing in his forehead. You have no right, he said through gritted teeth, to come here and ruin our celebration with your bitter lies. Lies, I repeated. Show everyone a single photo of me from the last 14 years. 1 post on Facebook about me. 1 mention of my name. 1 Christmas card with my name on it. Go ahead. I'll wait. Silence. My mother was openly crying now. We thought you wanted space, she sobbed. You never called us. You never reached out. We thought you didn't want us in your life. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I never reached out? You changed your phone numbers. You moved to a new house without telling me your address. You blocked me on every social media platform. How exactly was I supposed to reach out? And more importantly, why would I? You threw me away like garbage. You erased me from your family. You told everyone I abandoned you when the truth is you abandoned me. I turned back to the crowd. I worked 3 jobs through college. 3, while maintaining a 3.8 gigapascals. I graduated with honors with 0 help from these people. I became a financial advisor. I'm now a partner at Donovan Financial Group. I manage over $500 million in client assets. I have a net worth of over $2 million at age 32. I did all of that with no help, no support, no family. And they tell everyone I abandoned them, that I'm the bad daughter who won't speak to them. The crowd was murmuring now, people talking to each other, looking at my parents with new eyes. Some people looked disgusted. Others looked confused. A few looked sympathetic to my parents, but most seemed shocked by these revelations. My mother's best friend Linda spoke up again. Patricia, is this true? Did you really do this to your daughter? My mother started to answer, but Madison cut her off. You're so selfish, Rebecca. You always have been. Everything always has to be about you. You can't stand that Mom and Dad loved me more. You can't stand that I was more talented, more special. You're just jealous. She was holding Emma tighter now, the little girl starting to whimper, sensing the tension. I looked at my little sister, this woman I'd once babysat and helped with homework. Selfish? I was a child, Madison. They were parents. That's not how it works. You don't get to blame a kid for wanting to be loved by their parents. And jealous? Of what exactly? I walked closer to her, my voice calm but cold. You're 27 years old. You're divorced. You're unemployed. You're living with your parents who are going bankrupt. I'm successful, married, financially secure. I'm not jealous, but please, tell me more about how special you are. Madison's face crumpled. Tears started falling. Emma was definitely crying now, scared by the tension. I felt a small pang of guilt for doing this in front of the child, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about Emma. This was about truth. My father stepped forward, trying to take control. "That's enough, Rebecca. You've said your piece. Now leave. You're not welcome here." "Actually," I said, "I'm not done. I came here for a reason. Aunt Caroline told me you're in financial trouble, facing bankruptcy, about to lose everything." The crowd erupted in whispers and gasps. This was clearly news to most people. My mother looked at my father in horror, then at Aunt Caroline with betrayal. "Caroline, how could you tell her our private business?" "Because it's not going to be private much longer," I said. "Bankruptcy is public record. Everyone will know soon enough." My father's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. "That's private family business," he said. "But I'm not family, remember," I said. "You made that very clear. However, I am a financial advisor, one of the best in Texas, and I could have helped you. I could have restructured your debt, saved your house, created a recovery plan. That's literally my job. That's my area of expertise." My mother's expression changed instantly. Hope flared in her eyes. She stepped forward, reaching toward me. "You could help us?" She sounded desperate. Her voice was pleading now, no more fake sweetness. I smiled, but it was cold. I could have. Past tense. But here's the thing about family. It's supposed to be unconditional. You're supposed to be there for each other through good times and bad. You don't get to throw someone away and then ask for their help when it's convenient for you. "But we're your parents," my mother said, tears streaming down her face. "We made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. We're sorry. We're so sorry. Can't you forgive us?" "Now you're sorry," I said. "How convenient. When you need something from me, that's not an apology, Mother. That's manipulation. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you need me." My father spoke up, his voice hard. "You're really going to destroy your own family over ancient history? You're that vindictive? That petty?" I looked at him, this man who was supposed to protect me and instead threw me out. "I'm not destroying you. You destroyed yourselves. You made terrible financial decisions. You lived beyond your means. You took risks you couldn't afford. Those were your choices. I'm just declining to save you from the consequences of your own actions. There's a difference." Madison stepped forward, bouncing Emma in her arms, trying to soothe her. The little girl was still whimpering. "Think about Emma," Madison pleaded. "She's your niece. Your blood. She's only 3 years old. You would really let her become homeless? Let a baby suffer because you're mad at us?" I looked at Emma, at her little face red from crying, and felt something twist in my chest, but I steeled myself. "Emma will be fine," I said. "There are programs, resources, assistance for families in need. You'll figure it out, Madison, just like I had to figure it out at 18 with nothing and nobody. You're all adults. You'll survive. It won't be comfortable, but you'll survive. And maybe you'll learn something about humility and consequences." I started to turn to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm. "Please," she said desperately. "I'm begging you. We'll do anything. Anything you want. Just please help us. We made mistakes. We know that now. We're sorry. Please." I removed her hand from my arm, gently but firmly. "You had 14 years to do something. 14 years to reach out, to apologize, to acknowledge you were wrong. You had every opportunity to make this right. It's too late now, but you can't just leave us like this," my father said, and there was something almost panicked in his voice now. "We're your family. You have a responsibility." I turned back to face him. "I had a responsibility? Where was your responsibility when you threw me out? Where was your responsibility when you didn't come to my graduation? Where was your responsibility when I was working 3 jobs just to survive? You taught me that family obligations are conditional. You taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. You taught me to survive on my own. Congratulations. I learned your lessons well. One more thing, I said to the crowd. I'm going to give them a choice. Right here, right now, in front of all of you. I looked at my parents. I will help you. I will save your house, restructure your debt, create a financial recovery plan. I'll do it for free, as a gift to my family. The crowd gasped. My mother gasped. Even Madison looked shocked. On one condition, I continued. What condition? My father asked warily. You tell everyone here, right now, the truth, the whole truth. What you did to me, how you treated me, why I left. No sugarcoating, no excuses. Own what you did, admit it publicly, apologize publicly, and then spend the rest of your lives making it up to me. Not with money, with acknowledgement, with inclusion, with treating me like I'm your daughter, like I always should have been. Complete silence in the ballroom. 200 people holding their breath. My parents looked at each other. I could see them having a silent conversation with their eyes. Aunt Carolyn spoke up from the crowd. That's more than fair, Gerald. Tell them the truth. Another relative chimed in. Come on, Patricia. If you did what she says, you need to own it. Other murmurs of agreement. A full minute passed. It felt like an hour. Finally, my father spoke. I can't do that. I felt something inside me break and heal at the same time. Can't or won't? I asked quietly. I won't, he said, his voice hard again. I won't humiliate myself and my wife in front of our friends and colleagues. What happened between us and you is private. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand all the factors involved. Try me, I said. He shook his head. You were difficult. You were always so independent, so cold. You never needed us the way Madison did. You were always pushing us away. We gave you food, shelter, education for 18 years. We did our duty as parents. You're the one who chose to cut us off and hold a grudge. You're the one who won't let go of the past. There it was. After all these years, the true depth of their delusion. They genuinely believed they were the victims. They had rewritten history so completely in their minds that they actually thought I was the problem, that I was the ungrateful one, that they had done nothing wrong. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who just had their final questions answered. Okay, I said. Thank you for finally being honest. Thank you for showing everyone here exactly who you are. I turned to address the crowd. You all heard it. They had a choice. Truth and help, or pride and consequences. They chose pride. They chose to keep lying even when everything is falling apart around them. I turned back to my parents. You're going to lose everything. Your house, your business, your social standing, your reputation. The bankruptcy will be public record. Everyone will know. Everyone will see. And when you do lose it all, when you're desperate and broken and have nothing left, remember this moment. Remember that you had a daughter who could have saved you, a daughter who had the skills, the resources, and the ability to fix everything. And you chose pride over redemption. You chose lies over truth. You chose to keep being victims instead of owning what you did. My mother reached out again. Rebecca, please, don't do this. We're sorry. We're so sorry. Please don't leave us like this. Now you're sorry, I said. Now that you need something. That's not an apology. That's just fear of consequences. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you're in trouble. There's a difference. My father's face was purple now. You're really going to destroy your own family over something that happened 14 years ago? You're that vindictive? That cruel? I looked at him steadily. I'm not destroying you. You destroyed yourselves with your own choices, your own lies, your own pride. I'm just declining to save you. There's a difference. And it wasn't something that happened 14 years ago. It's something that's been happening every single day for 14 years. Every day you've erased me. Every day you've lied about me. Every day you've chosen to pretend I don't exist. This isn't about the past. This is about who you are right now. Today, even with everything falling apart. Madison spoke up again, desperate now. Think about Emma. She's your niece. She's innocent in all this. She's 3 years old. You'd really let her suffer? You'd let a baby be homeless because you want revenge on us? I looked at the little girl, tears on her chubby cheeks, confused and scared. I felt the guilt trying to creep in, but I pushed it back. Emma will be fine, I said firmly. There are assistance programs for single mothers. There are resources, food banks, housing assistance, childcare subsidies. You'll figure it out, Madison. You'll get a job, you'll apply for help, you'll do what you need to do, just like I had to do at 18 with nothing. You're an adult, you'll survive, and Emma will be okay because you'll make sure she is, the way I had to make sure I was okay with no help from anyone. And Madison, I added, maybe this will teach you something. Maybe struggling will make you stronger. Maybe having to work for everything will give you empathy you never had before. Maybe hitting rock bottom will teach you that the world doesn't revolve around you. Consider it a learning experience. I turned to leave. The crowd parted again. Some people looked shocked. Some looked sympathetic to me. Some looked horrified. I didn't care. My mother's voice called out, "Rebecca, please. I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything?" I stopped, turned back one more time. "You're not my mother," I said clearly. "You're the woman who gave birth to me. But you haven't been my mother since I was 12 years old. Mrs. Henderson was more of a mother to me in 10 weeks than you were in 18 years. Being a mother is about love and support and sacrifice. You did none of that. You gave me a room and food because the law required it. That's not being a mother. That's just avoiding jail time for neglect." I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard my mother sobbing, heard Madison crying, heard my father saying something angrily, heard the crowd erupting in shocked conversation. I walked through the lobby, past the string quartet, out the front doors into the cool April night. The valet brought my car. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, shaking. There was a tap on my window. Aunt Caroline. I rolled it down. "That took courage," she said quietly. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked, my voice suddenly small. She was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if there is a right thing in situations like this. But you stood up for yourself. You told your truth. That matters. They're really going to lose everything," I said. "Yes," she replied. "And that's their fault, not yours. Gerald made terrible financial decisions. Patricia enabled him. They're adults who made adult choices. You're not responsible for saving them from themselves." "What about Emma?" I asked. "What about the baby?" Caroline looked back at the country club. "Madison will figure it out. She'll get a job. She'll apply for assistance. Maybe she'll move in with Tyler's family. The baby will be okay. You're not responsible for your sister's child, Rebecca. You're not responsible for any of this." "But I feel like a monster," I whispered. Caroline reached through the window and took my hand. "You're not a monster. Monsters don't agonize over their choices. You offered them a fair deal. More than fair. You were willing to save them completely if they just told the truth. They refused. That refusal is on them, not you. Their pride is more important to them than their survival. You can't save people who won't save themselves." "Do you regret coming tonight?" she asked. I thought about it carefully. "No," I said, finally. I needed them to see me. I needed them to know they didn't break me. I needed to say no to them. I needed to stop being their dirty secret. I needed to exist." "Then you did what you came to do," Caroline said gently. "Your parents are fools. They had a brilliant, strong, successful daughter, and they threw her away. That's their loss, not yours. You're going to be okay." "Are you going to be okay?" I asked her. You're going to have to deal with the fallout. She smiled sadly. I'll be fine. I've been dealing with Gerald's messes my whole life. I'm used to it. Besides, I have my own life, my own family. I help because he's my brother, but I'm not responsible for him. Family is complicated, Rebecca. Sometimes the best thing you can do is set boundaries and stick to them. I squeezed her hand. Thank you for calling me, for giving me the choice to come tonight. She squeezed back. You're welcome. Now go home to your husband. Live your life. Be happy. That's the best revenge of all. I nodded, rolled up my window, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Aunt Caroline walking back into the country club, back into the chaos I'd left behind. I drove home through the Austin streets, my mind racing. When I walked into our condo, Daniel was waiting up. He took one look at my face and wrapped me in his arms. I told him everything that happened, every word, every moment, every choice. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, I asked him if I was a terrible person. He was quiet for a long moment, then said, "No, you're not terrible. You're hurt. You're angry. You're human. What they did to you was cruel. What you did tonight was set a boundary. You offered them a path to redemption and they refused it. That's on them. But Rebecca," he added carefully, "you need to make peace with this. Whatever happens to them now, you have to let it go. You can't carry their consequences. You did what you needed to do. Now you need to move forward." He was right. I knew he was right, but moving forward was going to be harder than I thought. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing my mother's face, Madison holding Emma, my father's anger, the crowd's shocked expressions. I kept wondering if I'd gone too far. If I should have just walked away without the confrontation. If I should have helped them despite everything. The doubts crept in during those dark hours before dawn. But when morning came, I made a decision. I was done looking back. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd given them a chance they didn't take. Now I needed to focus on my own life, my own future, my own peace. I couldn't control what they did or what happened to them. I could only control myself. And I chose to move forward, to let go, to build the life I deserved with the people who actually loved me. The next few weeks were quiet. I heard through Aunt Caroline that my parents' bankruptcy filing went through. They lost the house in May, moved into a small apartment. My father took a job as a property manager for someone else's company. My mother got a part-time retail job. Their social circle evaporated. The people at that anniversary party scattered like roaches when the lights come on. Fair weather friends disappear fast when the weather turns bad. Madison got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She and Emma moved into a studio apartment. She was apparently working on an associate's degree at community college, trying to build a career from nothing at 27. It was hard for her. Humbling, but according to Aunt Caroline, she was becoming more responsible, more realistic, more mature. Struggle was teaching her lessons that privilege never had. It's been 3 years since that April night at the Riverside Country Club. I'm Rebecca Martinez, now 35 years old. I'm sitting in my home office in downtown Seattle, watching the rain streak down the windows. Daniel and I moved here 2 years ago when Donovan Financial opened a Pacific Northwest branch and asked me to run it. We got married last year in a small ceremony on the Oregon coast with his family and our closest friends. Mrs. Henderson was there, still my biggest cheerleader after all these years. I'm 7 months pregnant now. We're expecting our first child in November, a baby girl. I already have her nursery ready. Painted a soft lavender with clouds on the ceiling. Daniel and I spent last weekend putting together her crib and changing table. We're naming her after Mrs. Henderson, Ellen Marie Chen Martinez, a name that honors the woman who saved me when my own family wouldn't. Life is good, peaceful, full. I run a successful branch office. I have a marriage built on actual love and respect. I have friends who choose to be in my life. I have a baby on the way. I have everything my parents said I'd never have. But I'd be lying if I said I never think about that night, about my family, about the choice I made. Some days I feel strong and justified. Other days I wonder if I went too far. Today is one of the wondering days, because yesterday something arrived in the mail. A letter, handwritten on plain stationery. Return address in Austin, Texas. From Patricia Martinez, my mother. I've read it 4 times now. 8 pages, front and back. Her handwriting is shakier than I remember, less perfect. The letter is an apology. Finally. Not the desperate kind she offered that night when she needed something. A real one. She takes full responsibility. Admits they were wrong. Explains but doesn't excuse. She writes about her own childhood. About how her mother had favored her younger brother. About how that made her feel worthless. She writes about how she unconsciously repeated those patterns with me and Madison without realizing it until it was too late. She writes about the shame she's carried for years, the guilt that eats at her. She writes about how much she regrets not going to my graduation. How she wishes she could go back to that morning and make a different choice. How she thinks about me every single day and wonders what I'm doing, if I'm happy, if I'm healthy. She writes about how she follows my career from a distance through online articles and LinkedIn updates. How proud she is of everything I've accomplished, even though she knows she has no right to be proud. She writes about Emma, about how watching Madison struggle as a single mother made her realize how hard she made my life. How she sees now what she couldn't see then. She writes about how they've lost almost everything, how they're living in a small apartment, working regular jobs, how humbling it's been, how they've had a lot of time to think and reflect, how she understands now that pride and image aren't worth sacrificing your children for. She doesn't ask for anything, doesn't ask me to call, to visit, to forgive, to help. She just says she's sorry, says she loves me, that she always loved me, even when she failed to show it, says she understands if I never respond to this letter, says writing it was for her own conscience, not to burden me with her guilt. It's signed your mother, Patricia, not Mom. She doesn't presume that title anymore. I don't know what to do with this letter. Part of me wants to burn it. Part of me wants to frame it. Part of me wants to write back. Part of me wants to keep my distance. Daniel says I should do whatever feels right, that there's no pressure either way. My therapist says I've come far enough in my healing that I can choose forgiveness without it, meaning I condone what happened, that I can let them back into my life on my terms if I want to. Or I can close the door forever. Both choices are valid. I think about my baby girl, growing inside me right now. I think about what kind of mother I want to be, what kind of grandmother I might want my daughter to have, if any. I think about cycles and patterns and healing and boundaries. I'm not the broken 18-year-old girl anymore. I'm not even the angry 32-year-old woman who walked into that country club. I'm something new, something I'm still figuring out. Something stronger and softer at the same time. I've learned that you can be strong and still have compassion. You can set boundaries and still leave the door unlocked. You can protect yourself and still be open to change. You can acknowledge hurt without letting it define you. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days I'm completely over it. Other days it still stings. Both are okay. To anyone out there dealing with family abandonment, with parents who failed you, with golden child dynamics that destroyed you, I need you to hear this. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not obligated to forgive just because they're blood. But you're also not obligated to carry the anger forever. Document everything. Get therapy. Build your chosen family. Succeed despite them or to spite them. Whatever motivates you. And if they come back asking for help, asking for forgiveness, asking for another chance, you get to decide. Not them. You. Set your boundaries and stick to them. Make your choices and own them. Know that whatever you choose is okay. There's no right answer when it comes to toxic family. There's only what you can live with. You survived them once. You'll survive whatever comes next. Trust yourself. You've earned that right. I haven't written back to my mother yet. The letter sits on my desk, next to a photo of Daniel and me on our wedding day, and a sonogram picture of our daughter. Maybe I'll write back someday. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll invite them to meet their granddaughter. Maybe I won't. I don't know yet. And I'm learning that it's okay not to know. It's okay to take time. It's okay to change my mind. It's okay to protect my peace while still leaving room for possibility. Here's what I do know for sure. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need their love to feel whole. I built a life they said I couldn't build. I became a person they said I'd never be. And whether we ever reconcile or not, I won. Not because I destroyed them, though I could have done more damage if I'd wanted to. Not because they lost everything while I gained everything. I won because I survived them. I won because I thrived without them. I won because I became someone I'm proud to be. That's the real revenge, if you want to call it that. Not destroying someone else, but building yourself into something they can never take credit for. Something they can never claim. Something that exists completely separate from them. I'm Rebecca Martinez. I'm 35 years old. I'm successful, loved, and free. I'm about to be a mother myself, and I did it all without them. Every achievement, every milestone, every moment of joy, I earned it myself. So here's my question for all of you who've stayed with me through this whole story. Have you ever had to choose between family obligation and self-protection? Have you ever been the scapegoat child who had to watch the golden child get everything? What did you do? How did you handle it? Drop a comment and share your story. Let's support each other. And if this story resonated with you, if you felt that pain of family rejection, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because I share more stories about overcoming family trauma and building the life you deserve. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone. That being the forgotten child doesn't mean you're forgettable. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for understanding that family drama isn't always simple, that revenge isn't always sweet, and that justice doesn't always feel the way you think it will. I hope my journey helps you navigate your own. I hope you find your peace, whatever that looks like for you. And I hope you remember that you're worthy of love, respect, and belonging, regardless of whether your family of origin gave that to you. Be kind to yourself. Set boundaries that protect you. Build a life that makes you proud. And remember, the best revenge is living well. Take care of yourselves out there. Until next time.